episode of Zone Coverage. I'm Cody Schoeler here with my co-host Ryan Root, as always, ready to talk about some NFL action. And I know that we are heading into the first week of the playoffs, but we want to take a quick second to just talk about some of the stuff that went down in week 18. Obviously not all of it. Obviously not a ton of it was super relevant, but there was there were a few things that happened that shook up the playoff picture, most notably being the Jacksonville Jaguars beating the Colts. That really turned the weekend into something that was very set in stone, into something that had a lot of moving parts. The Jaguars beating the Colts, then I think that combined with the Steelers winning knocked the Colts out. So the Colts went from more than 80% chance of making the playoffs to eliminated within a few hours. The Steelers then had life after an overtime win against the Ravens. And then it came down to Sunday Night Football, where we were very close to getting the tie that would have both teams through, but the Raiders prevailed. So that was really kind of the interesting thing of Week 18. The NFC kind of played out how we thought. We can talk about that in a quick, but I mean, just give me your thoughts if you want to start with Jacksonville or whatever, but just talk about this a little quick, because we have to talk about Jacksonville beating Indianapolis and still holding the first overall pick. That might even be the craziest part.
Yeah, if there's any true winner of Week 18, it would arguably be Jacksonville, other than probably the Raiders as well, but. It was really just, and the Steelers. It was really just a competition for this AFC wildcard spot, these two spots. And, I mean, we already knew that the NFC was pretty fleshed out, and there was only two teams that really had a chance for that last spot. But I wasn't expecting this AFC wildcard competition to be as, hectic as it was, right? I mean, first of all, Indianapolis losing to Jacksonville is absolutely shocking, mind-boggling. I mean,
and not even losing close. They got cooked. They got their
and it's, if someone wants to say, oh, it was in Jacksonville or this, they probably have the worst home field advantage out of any team in the entire league. Fans showed up dressed as clowns because they thought their team was a joke. Well, but they still came out with a win.
They wanted their GM gone. Probably should be gone, but yeah.
They shouldn't want their, whoever's filling in at head coach right now, I'm not sure who
Darrell Bevell.
Darrell Bevell, so.
Darrell Bevell from
Seahawks. I don't know if he's going to get called up now because he prevented a playoff team from making the playoffs, but point being with Jacksonville is they are obviously one of the true winners, and the biggest loser of Week 18 has to be the Colts, considering, I saw a tweet yesterday that said 3 weeks ago, the Colts were a team that nobody wanted to face in the playoffs, and now they're a team that nobody is going to face in the playoffs.
We talked about them as a team that could make a run based on the way they were playing, but you can't play like this and even get in. That was crazy.
A few things stuck out to me at that game. Obviously you got to take into account Carson Wentz just not having it put together throughout the entire game. Some very questionable throws, couldn't keep good care of the ball. And then hats off to the Jacksonville receivers who really just came to play against this Colts defense. Obviously Trevor Lawrence made some great plays, but some of these catches that these receivers were making, or these routes that they were running, got to give your credit to Marvin Jones Jr., Laviska Shenault. This Jacksonville team came to play. So that's about as much as I could say about this Colts game without getting into a real deep rant about how this is ridiculous for a Colts team to lose against the worst team in the NFL. But we can
I think they don't deserve, anymore to get talked about anymore. Their season's over.
Nope. That is the last
punishment.
That's the last thing that you get from this season is you lost to the worst team. So we'll see what happens with this Colts team over the offseason. I doubt they're going to make many changes because they had a good team at one point. But the Steelers is something that shocks me too, because I know I texted you yesterday. I was like, the Steelers are about to make the freaking playoffs. Are you serious? I bet you even Big Ben, a part of him is just I want to be done.
I bet you he's even
tired. Yeah. So
I thought I was going to win my last game. right off into the sunset, and now he's probably going to end his season on a loss.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and that game, I mean, even that game was crazy. I mean, the back and forth, and then that game could have ended in a tie, and then we'd be looking at more scenarios. Like, it was the fact that they were able to pull it off, but I mean, their spot wasn't locked in, even though they won. They had eliminated the Colts. They had, put themselves in a good place, but it still came down to Sunday night. I was really hoping that they would have just agreed to tie. I thought that would have been hilarious. It's part of the reason why I liked Vegas as the underdogs to cover, just because I was like, there's a very strong possibility this ends in a tie. Now, both teams tried, but it still almost ended in a tie. I mean, a few things we can talk about with that game. Obviously, Justin Herbert leading an incredible comeback.
That was
down 50 points. Just
historic.
Looking insane. And then the worst part being that, I mean, it still sucks that we don't get to see Justin Herbert in the playoffs because he's an incredible quarterback. I mean, game on the line, nothing seems too big for him. He's a great player. But then we've got, both teams trading field goals in overtime, and we're looking at, 3 seconds left. Raiders have a chance to kick a field goal. We didn't know if they were going to get it there, but they got it into field goal range with some runs, kicked the field goal, and they walk off with the win, eliminating the Chargers and letting the Steelers sneak into the playoffs. It was a very crazy game, a lot crazier than it had any right to be.
It's probably one of the craziest endings to a game that I've seen in a long time. At least on an NFL standpoint of saying, I mean, my favorite game that I've ever seen is the 2015 NFC Championship between the Packers and the Seahawks, because the Seahawks were going to lose that game at halftime, and then a miracle happened. So that's still my favorite game that I've ever seen. But this, in terms of an ending, I mean, I was sitting there with my dad watching the end of this game, and I'm thinking of all the possible, like, they should just kneel the ball. They should kneel the ball. He's like, aren't they going to get in trouble with the NFL? It's like, but they've tried to this point.
Yeah.
If they want to just, you're starting to take into account. I mean, if anybody knows what I'm talking about here, and as long as it's not too far out of left field, if we're talking about like game theory here, just take the win where you can get it. Don't, if you're taking a risk that you won't make the playoffs, or you could just sit back, relax, and you're going to make the playoffs anyways. But if anything, I think what the Raiders ended up doing to win this game, it's just the perfect ending to their regular season, I should say, because this is obviously a team that's been through arguably the most turmoil out of any team in the league. I mean, if we're not talking about injuries with the Ravens or Jacksonville with a head coach firing, the Raiders had both of that, and they had their star receiver go down with a DUI. So they went through the whole gauntlet of stuff. I mean, it's just they went through so many issues, and just the way that this game ends of them with 4 seconds left in the game, and I bet you the Chargers coach was just like, just give us a tie. Just give us a tie. You'll make it too. We went this far. It was a great game. And it was almost like the Raiders team just basically said, well, we're going to make the playoffs. Let's see if you make it. And the field goal.
There's a lot of stuff being talked about this game. Obviously, once it got into overtime, the sense was just, well, just take the tie, guys. Like, you tried for 60 minutes. It's overtime, close enough. But then, the Raiders, I don't necessarily believe that the Raiders were intentionally, like, running the clock out, because they could have just kneeled, that last possession away. They were still running the ball. They weren't passing it when they got the ball back on their final possession. They were able to run it into field goal range. I think they passed it on the first play. But the Chargers called a timeout after second down. I think it was about 40 seconds left. And then people are saying that the Raiders, were just going to run it out. And then the Chargers called that timeout, and then they changed it. But for the Raiders, it makes sense to at least try to get a field goal, because the Chargers were going to have the same matchup whether they won or tied. They were going to play Buffalo either way. But the Raiders, if they tied, they were going to play Kansas City. And we've seen how that has played out multiple times this year. But with the win, they improved their game. They are like I think they're the 6 instead of the 7 or something like that. Or I think they're the 5. So the thing there,
I believe New England is the 5. 5 seed right now. Or no, I think they're 6 because Buffalo is 3.
Yeah. So it made sense for them to, kick the field goal. There's a very, there's a very low likelihood that anything was going to happen for the Chargers on that. And, it's either a tie, you're still in, or a win, you're in with a better, position. So I like what the Raiders did there. I think, and I don't believe that they were just trying for the tie and ended up, let's kick a field goal. I think that was their plan all along. Might as well just kick a field goal as time expires and hope you can get the win.
I mean, so many people are talking about this timeout that it's honestly just kind of like it's because I think so many people wanted it to be a tie. I was one of those people that wanted it to be a tie too.
Yeah.
But for so many people that wanted it to be the tie, I mean, that's why they're talking about the timeout, saying, "Oh, well, I bet you the Raiders were going to kneel it," but then they're like, "Oh, well, we're going to win this game now." The team is going to go out there and going to try to win the game. I mean, Derek Carr said it in the post-game press conference. He's like, we wanted to win this game going into overtime. We wanted to win this game going into the game, period. No team – I mean, I can never imagine what it's going to be like to be an NFL quarterback, but you're not going to want to lead your team down the field and go, all right, let's take a tie. Because really, you could look at this game as you could look at it as a play-in tournament like they have in the NBA. This was basically a playoff game.
Close.
The stakes were literally there for it to be a playoff game.
Yeah.
So winning this game, you kind of have a playoff win under your belt. And the way that the Raiders have finished out this season on this great win streak, and everyone keeps counting them out, I mean, this is a huge morale booster for the Raiders. I bet you the Chargers, if they were in the position to win this game, like if it was just the roles reversed on this last drive, I bet you the Chargers would have just taken the tie. Or they would have had a higher chance of taking the tie. But the Raiders,
especially because
just fought the entire
and
season.
the Chargers position, like I mentioned, didn't change with their tie or win, so there wasn't as much of an incentive. But also the thing is, after that timeout, there was less than 40 seconds left. The Raiders could have taken a knee and ended the game. Like it's not like they stopped it on third down with 55 seconds left, so they couldn't have taken it down to 0. It was weird. I mean, I think, maybe he just wanted to get the defense ready in case the Raiders tried to pull something on him. But at the end, the Raiders still could have. I think the whole plan was once they got that pass, to around the 40, it was like, let's just run it, keep 2 hands on the ball. And if we can get in position for a field goal, let's kick a field goal as time expires. And, maybe we are the 5th seed instead of the 7th seed or whatever. So, and just going to the NFC real quick, that, not much changed. Obviously, we had one playoff spot for grabs, which the Niners got by winning against the Rams. And then with the Seahawks beating the Cardinals, the Rams were still able to hang on to the division crown. So, some interesting stuff happening going on there in the NFC West. I told you last week, this division likes to beat itself up at the end of the year. Both
I predicted it with you. I didn't predict the Niners to win, but the Seahawks, they just look to be like they're the team that they were supposed to be at the beginning of the year. So it looks like they're not going to make any real harsh changes.
Well, and I mean,
offseason. So
yeah, I don't want to talk about the Seahawks a bunch because they're not playoff relevant, but we're both Seahawks fans. I mean, they finished 7-10, and they didn't have Russell Wilson for 3 games and the end of 1 game, and 2 more wins is like playoff worthy. The Eagles finished 9-8, right? Yeah. So like the Seahawks, that was a terrible season, but they were not a top 5, worst team. They better than expected, and I think Russell Wilson just probably wasn't healthy for a few of those games that he came back. But they put up a great fight, ended the season well against the Cardinals team that ended the season poorly. So I just want to talk about that a bit because that was really the only thing that shook up the NFC a bit, even though it played out exactly how it was looking like. It was the only kind of interesting thing that really happened in the NFC front. Everybody else kind of stayed the same. The Saints won, but weren't able to get the Niners loss that they needed to sneak on in. So before we get to talking about the games, which we absolutely will do, we'll make our picks for that. I wanted to go through and rank the playoff quarterbacks in each conference because, we've talked about it a lot and everybody talks about it, but really this is a sport that comes down to the quarterbacks. And especially in the playoffs and especially not, who's playing hot. Joe Flacco was not the best quarterback in 2012, but he played like the best quarterback in the playoffs. And the Ravens won the Super Bowl. So that's kind of, what I wanted to do here and just rank these guys and who we I don't know how you're kind of viewing it. I know kind of what I'm thinking. It's just like, who would I want this year, to win me a game? I'm thinking more when the game's on the line, taking like team dynamics out of it. Like obviously Jalen Hurts is much better for the Eagles system as it stands than Tom Brady. But, I'm thinking about who do I want to lead me to a win? Who do I want with the game on the line? Kind of stuff like that, like scheme, team, independent. So, we can start. Let's start with the NFC because that's the one I put down first. I think it's pretty obvious at the top. I was wondering if you would have it switched because, Tom Brady is the GOAT, but we both have Rodgers number 1 and Brady number 2. I feel like that's pretty obvious. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a like intelligent football fan that would disagree, especially kind of with the way Tom Brady has ended this season. I just think, Rodgers is just playing at a different level right now, and Brady, he's still great, but I think Rodgers can just do more right now, especially with a little bit added mobility. And so, yeah, and if I'm thinking like, who do I want right now to quarterback me into the Super Bowl in that NFC? It's definitely Rodgers.
The way that I approached my list, what you were saying was, I kind of had a mixture of who has the most momentum going into the playoffs /
exactly
who has the playoff experience going forward. And you may think that like one weighs more than the other, but I kind of went pretty, 1-1 with the ratio between those two. So
I took experience into account as well because we're talking about how we want them for the playoffs, So definitely experience comes into play. It's why these two guys find themselves at the top.
Which is why, you said like I could have put Brady at number 1 just based off of experience, obviously, and his momentum's been relatively decent. But Aaron Rodgers does have the playoff experience, and he's the MVP of this league. So anybody saying that he's not the number 1 quarterback, at least in the NFC, who really is in the NFL going into these playoffs, it's definitely Aaron Rodgers. And I did put Brady 2 just because of the experience outweighing momentum tremendously, even though he has good momentum going in. Me and you are flip-flopped on number 3 and 4. You have Dak Prescott at 3, Stafford at 4.
I think
Stafford at 3, Prescott at 4. Yeah.
And I think, that's the thing is Rodgers and Brady are kind of unassailable there at the top. You can't really make a huge argument as to why you wouldn't want them. Like I would say I want Rodgers more than Brady, but I wouldn't say I don't want Brady because I think he can do everything you need him to do. Now is when you start getting into questions. My main thing with those two is Stafford has just not been playing great lately. He's been throwing a ton of interceptions, a lot of crucial interceptions. He threw one at the end to end the game yesterday. He had Odell Beckham, open down the field, and he just underthrew him and threw the pick. And so, I was debating even to drop Stafford lower just because I think he's super talented. But questions are arising about his ability to lead a team like that. I'm not gonna go into the whole Matthew Stafford's never succeeded or never won in the playoffs, whatever it is, because he was with the Lions for all those years, and even they were good some years, but they're still the Lions. I think he certainly has. If he's playing his best, I would put him over Dak, but I'm just not confident in that right now. Meanwhile, Dak, sure, he's also has some down games and some rough moments, but I think he's playing a lot better right now, and I would be worried about Dak losing me a game right now than I am Stafford. And I'm a huge Stafford and Rams guy. I want them to do very good in the playoffs, but I'm just seeing how many interceptions Stafford has been throwing lately is really, worrying me going into the playoffs, where those are going to be even more consequential and, dangerous.
I mean, if people want to talk about Matt Stafford never winning a playoff game, and then, you'd say he plays for the Lions. Well, at least he got the Lions to the playoffs. I don't think people recognize that. Sure, he hasn't won a playoff game, but he got the freaking Detroit Lions to the playoffs. So besides that, I mean, I was debating putting Garoppolo over Prescott. Our last 5 through 7 is identical, with Garoppolo at 5, Murray at 6, Hurts at 7.
I was debating putting Garoppolo above Stafford.
Yeah, because I mean, the thing that I will give Garoppolo credit for is that, he won the game yesterday to get his team into the playoffs. Yeah. So I mean, he knew how to put his cards right when his team's season was on the line. So that I debatably, was thinking probably Garoppolo over Prescott. But the reason I put Prescott over Garoppolo is, I mean, I'm kind of going against my own criteria here, but I've said it before. Prescott is just one of those quarterbacks that could just go on fire out of nowhere. And like you were saying with Joe Flacco in 2012, it's like Stafford may have struggled towards the end of the season, as did Dak Prescott, but these guys could go on a complete tear in these next 3 weeks. So it's really just kind of how the stars align. But Garoppolo at 5, Murray at 6, Hurts at 7. In terms of Kyler Murray, I mean, if we were going to rank these quarterbacks talent-wise, stuff would be shifted around at least a little bit. Oh, yeah,
for sure.
So don't take that into account with Kyler Murray being at 6 for anybody watching, because Kyler Murray is a great talent, but his experience is playing a part in this, just like how it is for Jalen Hurts. So, and he's been falling apart a little bit lately too at quarterback. Oh, so sure. He was immensely frustrated at the game yesterday, even though they already made the playoffs. It's like, this is a guy that doesn't have his patience under wraps, really, going into the playoffs. So, I mean, I've already said enough about this Cardinals team already, but like Kyler Murray, you're not going to have all the experience that a Rodgers or a Brady would have. You may win a playoff game. I don't think they will. We can talk about that in a second, but it's the experience that's outweighing the momentum, and the momentum wasn't great to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't know how it is with you, but this is not as much of a negative on Kyler Murray as it is just a positive on Jimmy Garoppolo. I think both of them are quite a few steps up than Hurts. I just think, the way Garoppolo played yesterday and just played recently, and he seems to just know how to get his team to score when when they need it. And it's not always necessarily making the huge plays. Like, he's not going to make the out of, pocket plays that Rodgers and some of these other quarterbacks make, but him running that offense is just, he runs it to a T. He does what he needs to do. He's going to make the right decisions and lead you down the field. And, he's done it. He's gotten to the Super Bowl before. He was very close to even winning one. The inexperience, comes to play with Kyler. If you were giving me if you're asking me, like, who do I want for my whole season, I'm going to take Kyler Murray because he is a more talented quarterback. And, he's probably a top 8, maybe, talented quarterback in the league. But if I'm, going into the playoffs, who can I rely on to be consistent and to, know what I'm getting from? I would go with Garoppolo. And then, Hurts at 7, just inexperienced, runs more than, that's a running offense now, and he runs it really well, but he's not on the same level as the rest of these guys.
I just want to say with the NFC rankings that we have, they're awfully similar, not identical, but awfully similar to the seeding right now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which should speak, it should speak a whole lot about the NFC as a whole. It's very, the quarterback talent compared to the AFC this year is not even close. So,
mine
it's going to be very interesting.
Mine is Garoppolo and Murray switched, and then you've got that, and then Stafford.
All of the wild card teams are in 5 through 7 on both of our lists, and all the division teams are 1 through 4. So that alone should show
that's true.
The division winners are your true division winners, and the wild card teams are the ones who are really just up for grabs.
Mm-hmm.
So the AFC is a little bit different, though, if you want to talk about that.
It is. Yeah, it is. I mean, obviously, number one on both of our lists is going to be Patrick Mahomes. I don't think it's very close. Even with, everything he went through at the start of the year, they figured it out. He's Patrick Mahomes. I would probably take him over anybody right now. I don't know. It's hard to say with Rodgers because Rodgers can just do so much, but I don't know.
We have to see. That's the thing.
Yeah, but, Mahomes, just what he can do is incredible. And now when the spotlight is back on him, when he in these tough matchups, I mean, he's been incredible in the playoffs. His 2 career playoff losses are in a championship, the AFC Championship and the Super Bowl. So,
and both of which are against Tom Brady.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the first one was not his fault. Dee Ford's offsides. That's a different game. And even the one last year, not really his fault because he was still probably the most impressive player in that game. He's had absolutely no help. He still has probably the greatest incompletion of all time. I think that was to.
We now have to see if we could put together a bunch of crazy incompletion highlights to just put him at number 1. That's the only reason to put those together.
I mean, it was an incredible play. But yeah, he's number 1, especially in the AFC, which is more even, I think, across the board, just in terms of like the teams in general. But the quarterback play is not nearly as close as the NFC is. I mean, they've got almost all those teams in the NFC have really good quarterbacks. In the AFC, a lot of solid ones, but nobody is really approaching Mahomes as a star power on that one, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this obviously I could have gone through with the same criteria of momentum and playoff experience, but it's a little different in this case with the AFC, like you're saying. So we both have Mahomes at 1. Our 2, 3, and 4 are completely different. I have Joe Burrow at 2.
I'm surprised.
Josh Allen at 3, Derek Carr at 4. You have Josh Allen at 2, Derek Carr 3, Joe Burrow 4. You could go a whole lot of different ways with just these 3 quarterbacks alone. I put Burrow at 2 because obviously playoff experience, big fat 0, right? You're not getting anything in that regard. Joe Burrow is really resembling his LSU senior season right now, where he's going to go into every game feeling like he's untouchable, he's unbeatable. He has his number 1 receiver as his best teammate. He's got Joe Mixon in the backfield that could pop off for a good game every once in a while. He's got Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins that are playing well. I mean, Joe Burrow is going to go into a playoff game and he's going to play like nothing's the matter. He can probably take down just about more than half of the playoff teams on this board if the seeding was just 1 through 14. I'm not even talking about conferences. I think he can take out a lot of NFC teams. That's just the thing with Joe Burrow is that his momentum is arguably the biggest going into the playoffs. We thought it was going to be, if we would have ranked Carson Wentz in this, if the Colts were to make it, like his momentum with his playoff experience, I mean, he basically has 0 playoff experience too, but Joe Burrow's just different because he's been breaking records. He has a rookie receiver that is breaking even more records in his class. I mean, that's what I have in terms of Burrow. And then Josh Allen at 3, that's because he's got.
I'm surprised you didn't go with Josh Allen number 2.
I would, and I wanted to. It's just Joe Burrow. This team's going to win a playoff game, whether we like it or not. And Josh Allen, I mean, they have a decently challenging first round matchup. And then Derek Carr at 4. This is going to be Derek Carr's first playoff game, and Derek Carr knows when to set his sights on getting the win, getting a touchdown, whatever have you. I mean, he's a very mature and patient quarterback, and he's brought his team this far through all of the turmoil they've gone through. Derek Carr should not be, the worst quarterback in this conference, but obviously not the best. So, I mean, what was your process of putting Josh Allen at 2 over everyone else?
my thing with Josh Allen is, the playoff experience of, really getting there last year, I think helps a lot, and just in his maturity in that. And it's also the fact that, he can do everything you need him to do. He can take over a game, a drive, whatever it is, and just, he's got that potential. He's the closest to Mahomes, I think, in terms of talent, in terms of that ability. And so, if you're telling me I could pick, one of these guys who isn't Mahomes to win me a game or a drive, I would pick Allen because of that immense talent. And then with me putting Carr over Burrow, I think it just comes down to, if I'm picking a quarterback to take me on a game-winning drive, I would pick Carr fifth right now. I would pick, not in no particular order, Rodgers, Brady, Mahomes, and Allen over Carr, and then I would pick Carr because he has just been incredible in those, game-winning drives and in those, big games and big moments at the end. Something about him, and just if you want to start scaling for the talent around him, which I don't know how much we're going to do with that, but if you tell me on all the same teams, he's throwing to Hobble, Darren Waller, to Zay Jones, to Hunter Renfrow. You give him what Burrow has, you give him what Allen has. I don't know if he's better than these guys, but he doesn't have a lot of talent surrounding him, and what he's doing is incredible. I just think he has that it factor that can drive a team to a win, and I think that's really incredible. And then Burrow, also the experience, same playoff experience, just with less actual NFL experience. I bump him down a bit. And then he's got an injury right now. I think he'll be fine. We don't know about that. But yeah, I think all these are really good. I had Burrow above Carr originally, and then just thought through it a little bit more. So I don't think there's a ton separating them. I think Allen is a little bit removed just because he's done it before. But I think, all three of those guys are in a place where I'm not super, super confident that they could win the game on their own like I think Mahomes can do. But I also would be scared if they were my quarterback and they had to, take my team down the field.
So let's talk about 5 through 7 then, because we both agree Tannehill at 5. But 6 and 7 we have flip-flopped, and I'll tell you at least my piece first.
Well, I just want to say on Tannehill real quick. I think Tannehill is closer to like 3-4 than he is to 6 and 7. I think we're just in a place where Titans and Tannehill specifically have been just a little muted these past few months. They've kind of, like I've said, just been coasting. But he certainly has the talent. We've seen him playing at his best at the end of the season in the playoffs and can do it. I'm not necessarily as concerned about him. I'm more concerned about the Titans offense as a whole than him. But so he's more closer to those than he is to these guys. But yeah, 6 and 7. I'll let you go with him, and I'll tell you what I'm thinking.
Yeah, just with Tannehill real quick. He did make an AFC title game on Tennessee's crazy run a few years ago. So you have to give him some credit. It's not the greatest quarterback. They're going to get Derrick Henry back, and he's just going to smile and wave throughout the playoffs. But you have to give him at least a little bit of credit, at least as of late.
And they've got the bye, so they need to win 2 games to go to the Super Bowl. You can win 2 playoff games with Ryan Tannehill. I think he's, like I've talked about, that Kirk Cousins mold. You can win playoff games with a guy of Tannehill's caliber if the team around him is good. Now you put Tannehill on the Raiders, I don't know if they're making the playoffs. He's had good years before, not necessarily as great right now. But you put him on the Titans, which are a pretty complete team, then you've got something a little dangerous. So that's kind of what I think takes him below some of these other guys, is he can't necessarily do it on his own, but that doesn't mean he can't do it.
So with 6 and 7, I do have Mac Jones at 6 and Ben Roethlisberger at 7. And trust me, I get it. Roethlisberger is a Super Bowl champion quarterback who has made multiple AFC title games, has been in the league for a decade and a half. And Mac Jones is playing in his
2 decades.
Almost 2 decades. And Mac Jones is playing in his first ever playoff game. And he's likely not going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year anymore because someone with flashier stats is going to take that award, and rightfully so. Mac Jones Mac Jones is the perfect example of someone just, taking their orders, kissing a lot of ass, and just trying to get through the season, get some wins, get some Super Bowls. That's the perfect mold for Mac Jones. I'm still taking him over Big Ben because the Steelers had to hope on a dollar and a dream for them to make the playoffs. They were mere seconds away from not making the playoffs after a very crazy ending to a Sunday Night Football game. But Roethlisberger's a Super Bowl champ, don't get me wrong. And I'm sure he was an MVP candidate sometimes in his career. But it's like if Forrest Gump was at quarterback, but he couldn't run. I mean, you can't bet the game on the line with Roethlisberger back there. I mean, yes, they did take out the Ravens, but who won that game for the Steelers? Who won that game for the Steelers? Who won all of the games for the Steelers? This is still a team that tied with the Lions. So, is this not? I mean, these bottom three quarterbacks. Let's face it, the team around them is carrying them, right? I mean, Mac Jones is not the reason that the Patriots are in the playoffs. The Patriots are in the playoffs because they have the greatest coach of all time overseeing the team still. And the Steelers are in the playoffs because they have Defensive Player of the Year that's just absolutely running over teams on the defensive side of the ball. And Tannehill is the greatest quarterback in the league in terms of handing the ball off to his running back. So these three quarterbacks we know are not the reason that they're in the playoffs. And Big Ben is the least reason why the Steelers are in the playoffs.
Funny you say that, because do you know who has the most game-winning drives of all quarterbacks this year?
This year?
Yep.
I'd be shocked if it was Big Ben, but if it is, then there's probably how many does he have? Six. Okay. How many of those were passes, runs, where they start the field off from? I mean, we could get into that whole deal, but
what I'm saying is, like, if you're talking about somebody that can get it done with the game on the line, like, yes, Ben's talent has certainly faltered, but the mentality and the football IQ is still there, and that's what I'm worried about when it comes to Mac Jones. Mac Jones has never been in these situations before, and
sure, this team cannot play from behind. I get it.
Yeah, and despite Mac Jones's better ability, do these two quarterbacks even play any different? Does Mac Jones isn't chucking it down the field either. So I'd rather take the guy that's done it before, that isn't going to be too, not that Mac Jones is going to be scared, but that's not going to be as fazed by the moment. And I don't think either of these teams are prepared to do much. I don't think either of them have great quarterbacks at all. But if you're telling me you've got a 75-yard drive in 2 minutes to do, I would rather have Ben Roethlisberger right now than Mac Jones. I've talked about it for a while. I think Mac Jones is going to hold this Patriots team back. And I mean, sure, Big Ben's doing the same, but I'm less worried about him, even though, the arm talent's a little shot, but I think he can still get it done if need be. But I mean, at the end of the day, these are the bottom two in this conference, and probably two of the bottom three, along with Hurts. So we're picking at straws right here. It's not a huge difference really between them either way.
My only thing is who against what teams did Ben Roethlisberger have those comeback drives against? Because I bet you very few of them are in these playoffs right now.
I mean, Mac Jones. I mean, like you said with the records. I mean, Mac Jones is one win better than the Steelers, and the Patriots get two easy games against the Jets. Meanwhile, the Steelers are in one of the tougher games.
They're in one of the tougher conferences or divisions for sure. I want to say, I mean, I'm just going to spitball here. I would like to say that one of those comeback win drives was probably against the Browns, I would imagine. I can't remember the scores of both of those games, but let's include the Browns on there. Let's include another. I'd say half of those comeback wins were against, semi-bottom feeding teams. You're not going to be able to do that against really any of these teams. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger cannot do a comeback win against any single one of these defenses he's about to go against. It's just playoff football is a lot different than when it was in when did they win the Super Bowl? Like 2010, something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's when they won. And they won in 2000. Or he's a two-time Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, he's two-time.
I forgot about 2005, yeah. So he's done it. It's a different league. You know, when's the last time they made the AFC title game? I want to say it was like maybe 2012, 2013 maybe, when they played the Broncos or something.
You want to hear his he's got game-winning drives against Buffalo, Seattle, Cleveland, Chicago, Baltimore, Tennessee. So two of the teams that are in this, you know.
So Buffalo, I remember from week one, right?
Say that.
And what would I'm sorry, you said Buffalo, Seattle,
Cleveland, Chicago, Baltimore, Tennessee. So he's done against two playoff teams.
Okay.
And you know,
sure,
Baltimore's on the periphery. But yeah, I mean, you know, we don't have to spend much time on these guys because obviously they're at, you know, the bottom of their respective things. But let's move on into the actual games. Only six. I mean, only six. That's still more than we're used to. But 6 games, as you know, opposed to our usual 14 to 16 or whatever. But the first one will be the Raiders and the Bengals at the Bengals on Saturday. I mean, the Bengals are 6-point favorites. I know you talked about saying the Bengals are definitely going to win a playoff game, but I'm not so sure about that.
Let's see. Bengals going up against. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up the games here so I have it in front of me. That's what I thought. Yeah, the Raiders. So Bengals has a 6.5-point favorite of the Raiders. I don't mind that spread, to be honest with you, because, like I said, so if we want to talk about the Bengals offense all day, which Lord knows we can, they're going against a Raiders defense that had a 15-point lead with less than 10 minutes left in the game yesterday. They let up 3 fourth-down conversions in Justin Herbert's historic comeback drive. I mean, how many 3rd and 10s that they gave up, 4th and 10s? They gave up a 2-point conversion before they even got the ball back. Like, this Raiders defense, I mean, the only person on this Raiders defense that was actually going out there and making a difference was Max Crosby. And whenever Justin Herbert was hit by Max Crosby or pressured by him, he was having bad throws. But then Justin Herbert would go and make another play, and the secondary just fell apart. And if there's something that Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow are going to be able to destroy, it's a secondary that is not consistent with their coverages, with their assignments. This spread is perfectly fine to me, and I think the Raiders had a great historic game that they won yesterday, one that is definitely going to be talked about. There's probably going to be a 60 for 60 on the Raiders season as a whole, but this is the Bengals game to win, and I think this is a team that the Bengals this is a team that the Bengals would have loved to face going into the playoffs however many weeks ago. I mean, if the Bengals were going against, you know, a Kansas City, a Tennessee, a Buffalo, we got something else to talk about. But they're going up against a Raiders team that practically almost choked the game away. So I have to give it to the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Raiders I don't see as a team that's going to lose a playoff game by not in the first round to Bengals by more than a touchdown. I think they keep it close. There's just something about this team. Like I said, Derek Carr can do what needs to be done. And I mean, I view the Bengals and the Chargers pretty close talent-wise. Obviously, the Bengals played them a bit better, but I don't know. I mean, the Bengals at the end of the day, they're not in the upper tier of the playoff teams. So I think there's certainly some, you know, vulnerability there. The Raiders are one of the hottest teams right now, just playing well. And I don't know, I think something about that could carry over. I could see them, you know, making some noise, keeping it close, maybe doing something. I mean, we'll see. This is a very, you know, young, inexperienced Bengals team. We'll see how they do. And yeah, the Raiders are similar, but at least like Carr has had, good seasons and meaningful games before, and some of these guys on that team. We'll see. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals win. And the Bengals, if they play as good as they can, should definitely win this game. But kind of what I said last week, I know what I'm getting from the Raiders. I feel like they're pretty consistent in what they do. I'm not sure about the Bengals. We could see them have a great game. We could see them struggle a bit. So I would at least pick the Raiders to cover and keep it close.
Keep it close? Maybe. But, any team can go out there and make noise, but very few can go out there and make music, if that makes sense to you. I mean, like, anybody could go out there and make some passes, run for some yards, get some interceptions, turnovers, whatever you want to call it. You are now in the phase of football where it cares about winning the game under any means necessary. And the Raiders, they've been counted out this entire season. They've been counted out this entire season. So me doing it right now will probably just be fuel to the fire. I mean, this team has battled against adversity the entire season. So I won't be surprised if the Raiders win. I just think the Bengals have the highest chance to winning this game easily.
Yeah, and I mean the Raiders definitely have an uninspiring defense in terms of kind of star value and stuff. But if you actually look at the numbers, I mean they are. What's this? 10th in yards per play, so 10th best. And passing, they're actually, in terms of net yards gain per pass attempt, they're 8th. So this is, a team that they don't do anything. They didn't do it by necessarily overwhelming you, but they play well. They're talented. I think they can get it done. We'll see. This is certainly an interesting way to kick off the weekend, and then the next game, I think I'd say probably, definitely one of the most exciting games of the weekend, but that is Patriots going to Buffalo. Buffalo, 4.5-point favorite in that one. We get the third matchup between these two this season, having split the first two.
Yeah, this is pretty much the best matchup of all wildcard weekend, I'd say. And we haven't even brought up
I got one.
I'm not even going to include that game. I think I know what game you're talking about. But Patriots at Bills, think of it this way. No matter what result this game has, there's going to be a riot in Buffalo. It's going to be either a good one or a bad one. So this game, you don't have to take into account weather going into this game because both these teams know how to play in a blizzard.
Yeah.
You don't have to take into account them not meeting throughout this season. They meet twice a year every year. So this is going to come down to coaching at the end of the day. And we'd like to say Josh Allen is obviously a better quarterback than Mac Jones, but this is also a team that played the Bills and passed the ball 4 times and won 3 times, whatever it was. So it doesn't come down to quarterbacks between these two teams. It comes down to coaching. It comes down to, can you execute your plays as perfect as possible? I can imagine this being a scrappy game. The last time that these teams played, Buffalo scored the most points against the Patriots, I think, all season, or the second most.
Probably. They didn't punt the whole game. They kind of dominated them.
So this game is, out of all the games here, this one has the most, pinpointing schemes going into this game on both sides. They've played each other twice. Obviously, the game we'll talk about in a second have played each other twice as well. But this, as opposed to the other game, comes down to coaching at the end of the day. Am I going to go with Belichick? Am I going to go with Sean McDermott? I have to ride the hot hand with Buffalo here, and my bias obviously plays a part in this. But the Patriots made the playoffs with a rookie quarterback. And I didn't say Mac Jones was the first or second best quarterback in this conference going into the playoffs. I said he was the second to worst. And he's ahead of Ben Roethlisberger, who's playing awful as of late, except for a few game-winning drives. Mac Jones, can he execute all of these coaching decisions and all these plays, all these you have to go with the team that made the AFC title game last year, and them being at home, knowing that this stadium is going to be packed, and this stadium hates the Patriots every single time they come into their stadium. I have to go with Buffalo, and them being a 4.5-point favorite, I'll take the Patriots to cover, but I think the Bills will win because I think this has the potential to being a very scrappy game.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this isn't really a question. I don't see the Patriots winning this game. I think it's great that you've got there. I think you've had a great season, but this is not the matchup that you wanted. I'm not finding anything official here, but there haven't been a lot of playoff wins by rookie quarterbacks. Now, obviously, a lot of quarterbacks don't make it there because, usually you've been drafted by a pretty bad team. But it looks like 1, 2. I'm looking at.
Did Russell Wilson make the playoffs his rookie year?
Yeah. This is
and Andrew
listing
Luck
like
did too, I think.
He did not win one. This is listing guys who were clearly backups or didn't play. So I'm counting the guys who have thrown for yards. I mean, John Wolford last year won one playing in relief, but no, he didn't. He started and didn't win. So, but 1, 2, looks like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8, 9, about 9, and we're going back for those. So rookie quarterbacks don't win playoff games, and if they do, I think they would have to be favorites. There's no way that Mac Jones is going into Buffalo and winning this football game. We've seen them play twice, sure. The first game was a gimmick game. It was terrible weather, 50-mile-per-hour winds. The Patriots, didn't even have to throw the ball, sure. But that's not happening again. We saw when they played the next time, and it was a real game, and Buffalo handled them with ease. The Patriots love to beat up on bad teams, but they aren't really doing anything impressive when you look at some of these other games. Sure, it's great, but you need a much better defense to win with Mac Jones as your rookie quarterback. The Bills, I think, are a very good team when they play up to their potential. And, I mean, Josh Allen, he's going to do what has to be done to win this game. I don't think he'll be particularly scared of this defense, having played them, many times before. So this is a Buffalo win and a Buffalo cover for sure. I think this has, there's some other games on there, but I don't think this one will be particularly close, really. It might be close by score, but won't be close by how it felt.
We'll see. Belichick in the playoffs is a different ball game, even though he's already the greatest coach of all time. So,
I mean, sure, but we've seen what happens when Belichick gets to the playoffs without great teams too. It's different when he gets there with these teams that are Super Bowl caliber, but when he gets there with teams that are playing better teams, I mean, look at the last time they were there. They lost to the Titans. He can elevate mediocre teams getting to the playoffs, but that's a feat in and of itself. That just, he doesn't just work, magic with anything. I mean, getting him to the playoffs was the, accomplishment there. This is where it stops for them.
We'll have to see it. I am going with Buffalo, though. I think they will make it to the next round. What's the next game that we have on the bracket
here? The next one is I have them here. The next one is Philly at Tampa Bay Sunday morning. Tampa Bay 8.5-point favorites.
Philly at Tampa Bay. Oh, there it is. It's not letting me scroll down. Do we have to really talk about this one? I mean, this is Tom Brady hosting an Eagles team that, it's great that they made it, and I think Jalen Hurts is on his way.
When was the last time Tom Brady played the Eagles in the playoffs? Just saying.
I mean, good point. To me, completely different team, but yeah, it's a good point.
To me, what makes me think of this is last year, Washington was the worst team, and they gave the Bucs a run for their money. Philly's a better team than this Washington team, and if you're trying to control a game, then I think Philly can do it. And also, Tampa Bay is falling apart. They're losing people week by week. Mike Evans, had to leave the game with injury. I believe he came back. Cyril Grayson pulled up. they're just, like I've said, going back for weeks. So this was a completely healthy Tampa Bay team. It's different. I still think Tampa Bay wins because they are the better team. I think they lucked out by getting the 2 seed because if LA would have won, well, I guess it would have been different. But if Tampa Bay was playing one of these teams that wasn't the Eagles, I think it'd be a much different game with upset potential. I just don't think Philly is there yet. I do think Philly keeps it close just because, like I said, we've seen it last year, I think. And I just don't – I think Philly's going to be able to do what they need to do to keep the score competitive, but Tampa Bay will win this, sure.
Yeah, maybe they won't cover with an 8.5 spread in Tampa Bay's favor.
I don't think so. I think Philly
this doesn't breathe, like squash game by any means.
No, I mean the Bucs needed a comeback drive to beat the Jets 2 weeks ago. Come on, it's still the same team,
right? And sure, you want to bring up Washington almost beating the Bucs last year in the playoffs with the Taylor Heineke show that happened, but the Bucs also just went on and took care of the teams that they faced. I mean, they embarrassed the Packers in the NFC Championship.
They did not embarrass the Packers.
They did. If anything, the Packers embarrassed
one-score
themselves.
game.
It wasn't. I don't think the Packers led at any point in that game.
The Packers had the ball with a chance to score at the end of the game. That's a close game.
That's right, because Aaron Rodgers didn't get it on like 4th and goal or something, and then everybody wanted to blame everyone else except for Aaron Rodgers. Yes, that's how every NFC Championship game goes with the Green Bay Packers. But
they kicked the field goal.
Or that's right. Yeah, and they're like, should have gone for the touchdown, not the field. I remember that now. Okay. Point being, though, is I don't see upset potential with this game. I see it with other games, but the Eagles being here, you have a first-year coach in the playoffs here that has, I don't know where Sirianni was before this, but
he was the Colts offensive coordinator
last year. So he did make the playoffs then, right? Because the Colts were in there.
I don't know.
The Colts weren't in the playoffs last year? I thought they were. I thought they were like 10-6.
No, I don't think so. That was Jacoby Brissett. I don't know.
I mean, the fact of the matter remains is the Eagles, Jalen Hurts this is the Ravens of the NFC. At the end of the day, they're very quarterback dependent, and they have a very mobile quarterback who's in the top 20 in the league for rushing yards. So obviously this quarterback is a workhorse. Having this quarterback go into the playoffs just with, no experience whatsoever, just think that same exact mentality works. I mean, it's the same reason why Lamar Jackson has not had a lot of playoff experience yet, is because they're still working on getting him to transform into this multidimensional quarterback. And Jalen Hurts, although he's not Lamar Jackson by any means, because obviously that guy won an MVP, he's not going to have really a lick of a chance to take down the Buccaneers. I would be surprised if the Eagles won this game, but I'd probably be even more surprised if the Buccaneers squashed them is the thing. It's a very weird kind of balance of a result here, but Tom Brady should take care of this team, but just not in fantastic fashion.
Yeah, I just think it's more. I think the Buccaneers could collapse at any moment. I don't think it'll be this round. I'm just saying
this game they'll pass. But next round, we'll see.
I agree. But I'm not sold on the Bucs. I think the Eagles are going to be able to, keep the game low scoring. The one good thing about having a rushing offense like that is you can probably you're more likely to be able to do some stuff with him. Like Jalen Hurts isn't going to have to drop back and throw it every time. You can, keep it to what he knows, move the ball, do some things. But yeah, I mean, this isn't, going to be one of the most interesting games likely of the week. But I think this is what I would put as the most interesting game of the weekend. And that is the Niners at the Cowboys.
That's not the game that I thought you were going to pick. Okay.
No, this is the one that I think is, it's the closest spread of every game. So clearly, I think that's more of the reasons why. I think it has the potential to be the best game and the closest game. And honestly, I'm picking the Niners in it to cover.
I was just about to say the same
I-
thing. It's funny that you have that same view. Tell me your reasoning first for having the Niners win, because you know me, I would not have faith in the Niners against really anybody. But I mean, tell me your reasoning.
I mean, it kind of sucks because I think the Cowboys could all. These are kind of the two teams that I think could pull something off and do something. Like I think the Cowboys certainly have that ability. But I mean, I said it a few weeks ago when we were talking about teams as pretenders and contenders and whatnot. I said if I'm looking at these 9 and 7 wild card teams, the Niners I think have the potential to pull something off. Their defense can do enough, and the offense, like the offense knows what it is better than a lot of other teams. Maybe even probably better than this Cowboys team, even though the offense is better. But is it a Zeke offense? Is it a Dak Prescott airs it out offense? Like we don't know. The Niners know who they are, and I think Deebo Samuel is an absolutely incredible player and game-breaking player, and he's the type of guy that can go off in a playoff game and do something. I think, George Kittle obviously is great, and I mean Garoppolo just, like we talked about earlier, he does what he needs to do, and I think the Niners are hot. I think the Niners have the momentum, and I think this is a type of game that they can go in and win because all you got to do is get the Cowboys to play it off a little bit, and then the door's wide open.
So, I mean, this Niners team is probably the closest to the Raiders in the NFC out of any team, right? I mean, this is a team that we wouldn't have taken into account to be a playoff team 5-6 weeks ago. Now they're here. So, I mean, this is a team that did lose to Seattle not too long ago, but
sure,
now they are not the bottom seed in the NFC for the playoffs. I see this being a Niners win, not because the Niners are the better team per se. Something about them Cowboys says to me that they're going to fall apart because let's face it, they do have Mike McCarthy at quarterback, at head coach. Dak Prescott does have a high ceiling, but I don't think this team has Amari Cooper going forward, or maybe he's back. I could be wrong.
I think so. What's
because if he's not back, then it's just CeeDee at that point.
Cedric Wilson.
And Cedric Wilson. I mean, other than, I guess, Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, who for the most part have good games, but when they're not clicking, this whole offense isn't clicking. So the thing that's propelling this Cowboys team forward is their defense and the potential for Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs to have decent games. But I think everyone's kind of figuring out Trayvon Diggs is, what's the chances that I throw this to him and it's going to be a 40-yard gain or an arm punt, right? So they might want to test Trayvon Diggs deep the entire game. They might want to put Deebo Samuel right in his face because Trayvon Diggs has allowed so many yards. Yes, that's not how they roll, but if they want to win a playoff game, you may have to go a little away from your identity at points.
Nah, get Deebo Samuel the ball, but you get it to him short. Like, you get him involved in the offense.
Who would you rather want to take a chance with, Micah Parsons or Trayvon Diggs? Who would you rather contest if you're the Niners on offense?
I mean, sure, Trayvon Diggs allows a lot of yards, but he's still – the ball skills is insane. Like, he gives up the yards, but it's probably – he's getting thrown at quite a bit. But, I mean, still, the Niners just do your thing. Get Deebo involved. Get George Kittle involved. Like, get guys open, but there's no need to do anything you don't.
That's the other thing. Kittle should be able to catch really most of these defenders on the Cowboys defense, other than maybe Micah Parsons, who's probably going to be all over the damn place. But if you're the second best tight end in the league behind Travis Kelce, you should be able to really make plays no matter what. And against a Cowboys team that, when's the last time that the Cowboys legitimately had a good team and made the NFC Championship and had a chance for the Super Bowl? Last time that they had a fantastic team going into the playoffs was when they had a rookie quarterback and a rookie running back have incredible seasons, and they lost in their first game.
I think 2018 they won a game. They were good.
The last time they've had like a huge team with all this momentum to have all these playoff hopes. When's the last time, other than Dak and Ezekiel Elliott's rookie year, that they had that team? And really, we all knew in the back of our mind that this wasn't going to be a Super Bowl team, but they were playing really, really well. So I can't ride with the Cowboys until they really show me that they are a team to beat. Congratulations. You took the Eagles out last week and scored 50 points on them. The week before that, and the week before that, and the week before that, I mean, this team has fallen off at least a little bit. They don't win against particularly great teams. They were in a terrible division. They were, of course, going to win this division. But
terrible division. That's 2 playoff teams from that division. Come on now.
Yes, there's a team that's 1 win above 500 that's in that division. You're right.
Yeah, that's saying a lot.
But this Cowboys team, I cannot. I could pick them above any other team against other teams, but against the Niners team that's come out of nowhere as of late and come back and put themselves into the playoffs conversation, I have to go with the Niners. And plus, Kyle Shanahan, he's got the more recent playoff experience than McCarthy. So
sure, yeah.
I got to ride with Kyle Shanahan.
I'd pick Dallas over a lot of other teams, both of the other wild card teams. They got a raw deal. I think anybody playing the Niners kind of got screwed. I think this will be the most competitive and the closest and probably the best game out of them all. And the opposite of that will be the Steelers at the Chiefs. Chiefs 12.5-point favorites. I mean, there's no reason that they aren't going to cover.
Man, I'm wondering if Pittsburgh in some universe has a chance of winning this game.
No.
Man, I mean, I don't know if Pittsburgh fans are going to even have a good time next Sunday of watching this game, because this is going to be Big Ben's last game, and they're going to get absolutely embarrassed. They made the playoffs.
Patrick Mahomes has never lost a playoff game to a team that didn't win the Super Bowl. Like that, he doesn't just lose. Like, he loses games to good teams. He loses games to Tom Brady. But I mean, other than that, I mean, him and the team, they handle their shit. Like, they don't mess around with these teams. And even if you get up 20 points on them, they're still probably going to come back and win. I mean, it's just, that's what they do. And the Steelers, I mean, congratulations on the Steelers for getting in, but I think the Chargers and the Colts are both better teams than the Steelers. And the Ravens, if they are completely healthy. They're all better teams than the Steelers.
Now, if this Steelers team pulls a miracle, we're probably talking about the biggest upset in playoff history, or at least one of the biggest upsets in playoff history, other than the Giants beating the Patriots in 2007 in the Super Bowl.
Other than Seahawks beating the Saints in 2009 or what?
Right, the year after they won the Super Bowl. Yeah, with
the year after the Saints.
Yeah,
the year after the Saints
game.
won the Super Bowl. Yeah. I mean, we see it, but not to the Chiefs.
That's the first ever losing record playoff team in NFL history that took out the Super Bowl champ. So yeah, that'd be up there too. But if Pittsburgh pulls a miracle, then I think that's a bigger win than Seattle taking out the Super Bowl champs that one year. I think this is a bigger win because this Pittsburgh team is running on fumes, and they're playing a team that's been running on gasoline for the past 4 years.
Yeah.
They don't stand a chance in hell. Kansas City's going to cover.
No. Yeah, they're going to cover. This will be like probably a 20-point win unless they step off the gas.
And I would love to talk about the last game, but unfortunately, we're getting the first ever Monday Night Football playoff game.
No, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it now.
We'll talk about it now? Okay, we're breaking our rule, even though we've backed out of that multiple times. But
might as well. We'll talk about all the games now.
Okay. Rams at Cardinals. This is the game that I thought you were going to be the most excited about, considering this game.
No, this game is not particularly interesting to me because the Cardinals are not going to win a playoff game. The Cardinals are not playing good right now. They're not scary. They're not intimidating. And the Rams, sure, maybe they're kind of in the same boat, but the Rams are better right now. They're playing better right now. They're just going to win. Like the Cardinals, anybody match them up against anybody in the playoffs in the NFC, and I would pick them to lose. They're just not getting it done right now, and that it doesn't matter.
The thing that sticks out to me about this game is, both these teams, not very great momentum going into the playoffs. But man, Green Bay must be chilling right now because whatever team they get to play in the next round, which is one of these teams.
Well, not necessarily. Not if the Niners win. They play the lowest seed.
Oh, they play the lowest seed. Oh, okay. I forgot that the bracket is switched up.
They reseed them. So
regardless, the Packers are chilling because Rams, Cardinals, Niners, the Packers are going to conquer the NFC West regardless. But let's get back to the game itself. So the Rams, you can't count out a Rams team that has been to the Super Bowl not too long ago with Jared Goff at quarterback. They still have that great head coach there. Jalen Ramsey, still the best corner in the league. Aaron Donald, still the best interior defensive lineman in the league.
Defensive player in the league.
He's the best defensive player in the league. You cannot go against this Rams team that has a receiver who almost broke the receiving record for yards and is now the fourth receiver all time to have the triple crown to lead the league in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. And he's a receiver from Eastern Washington that isn't even 30 yet, isn't even 25, I don't think. Maybe he's 20. The point being, they don't have Julio Jones or Antonio Brown from a few years ago or DeAndre Hopkins at receiver. They have an Eastern Washington receiver that's going out there and making plays because this offense knows who they are. Matt Stafford knows this offense. Questionable throw sometimes, of course. Every quarterback makes them. But now they also have Odell Beckham as their second options, maybe even the third option in some regards. What are the Cardinals going to do to clog up this offense? Pretty much nothing. And then Kyler Murray making the decisions he's been making lately and how frustrated he's getting with his offense. I can't count on it. And they're gonna rush DeAndre Hopkins to come back and try and play when we know he's not 100%. If he plays, who knows? It's just like this Cardinals team. They have a lot of things that they're losing. Everything that they're holding in their arms, they're dropping things left and right. Everything's going to collapse at some point, and this is going to be the game that happens.
Yeah, the Cardinals are just free falling in terms of their momentum, and it just sucks because you see good teams that end the season, not good, and then they get beat in the playoffs. This is how it works. You don't flip the switch again. You don't lock up a playoff spot. Coast to the end and then turn it back on. You've got to keep it rolling. And, the Rams, sure, not great, but close game against the Niners. They're not getting, blown out. They're going to have to reel Stafford in a bit. They're going to have to do a few things better, but I think they got a really good matchup because I'm not afraid of the Cardinals. So, yeah, Rams win by 4 pretty easily, I think, and then we'll see where it goes. But yeah, that's on Monday, first Monday game. So that will be quite interesting. But that is going to do it for us today. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be with you next week to talk about what went down in the wild card weekend. Make sure to follow Dash Sports on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter to keep up with what we're doing, as well as subscribe to the Dash Sports YouTube channel to see all our clips and videos. Thank you for